It's hard for people who are boundaryless to watch somebody have boundaries, because boundaries is an act of self-love.
Time is money, so spend yours listening to me talk about things that are important to me and my people.
Time is money.
Hello and welcome to this week's Minisode of Maya's Minutes podcast. I am reaching you from a very different headspace this week. Last week, if you listened to that episode, which I would still recommend listening to, I was very much in my angry bag. But, you know, racism will do that to you. Welcome to the show. If you're new here, the format of the show is different series with overarching topics and an expert guest of whatever that topic is for the entire series. Series topics include and are not limited to fertility and non-hormonal contraception, politics, mental health and the NHS support or lack thereof, the fitness industry and how to navigate it as a personal trainer of colour, finances, abortion, and I've got more series in the pipeline. But the series do take a while, and obviously it's with another person, so it's a lot of admin and logistics to sort out. But that's why I've done these minisodes, so that in the meantime you are being tied over. Please make sure the first thing you do is subscribe. It really helps. Every time I see a new subscriber, it makes me so happy, and it makes all of this work really worth it. I would like to get to a point one day where Maya's Minutes is my whole thing and not just my side thing, and that isn't going to happen unless the numbers correlate. So please review, reshare, listen, subscribe, download, any kind of metric you can use, please do it. Share it in the group chat, whatever. Let's get into the episode. So this week I want to talk about boundaries. Now, I'd say it was about 3 max years ago when I discovered boundaries on social media being used for every other post, around the same time as this whole like self-love talk. Boundaries are important, don't get me wrong, but it's important to understand how and where you can set them. 99% of the conversations I have with my friends and, you know, relevant to my own life, things always come back to boundaries. Like, people are hurting you, people are taking the piss out of you, people are really overstepping, and more often than not it's because you haven't set the tone of how you want this relationship or this dynamic to go. And as someone who has, on a large part, not a whole part, but on the majority of areas of my life and relationships, I have successfully set these boundaries. So I feel like I'm a bit of a boundaries expert. Obviously, there are some people, like parents and family in general, where it's always going to be harder because, unfortunately, those guys have your blood and you've been with them for a long time. I always say, it's taking a slightly cynical turn, but if we didn't, as humans, depend on our parents' validation and love, we would have achieved so much more by now. My partner's got a very different perspective. He's like, yeah, but it's because of that some people have been pushed to do some incredible things, because, you know, the guy whose dad never came to any of his school plays went on to be the biggest, best actor in the world, and we love him for it because he was always desperate, yearning and searching for his father's validation. But I see it as no, because what about the guy down the road who was bound to be this incredible astronaut, but his dad never gave him the validation or told him he was good at it, so he abandoned that, and now he works in Tesco and on the side he sells a bit of weed? What about him? And I feel like there's more of those guys than there are the actors. I don't know. Maybe it's 50-50. Regardless, I'm a big advocate for doing your best to cut off respectfully and healthily from people in your life, sadly, usually your family, who overstep and take the piss out of you. How do you do this? Because people say this to me all the time, and I'm not going to pretend that it is the same for white people. It is not. Often, you hit the jackpot, you tell your parents or whoever that you're not doing something or you don't want to do something, and they say, okay, off you go, John, no problem. When you are ethnic, very different story. First of all, your family have expectations of you which are ridiculous. They expect you to be smashing it from a financial perspective and also there at their beck and call. So their problems, guess what? They're not their problems, they're your problems as well. You choose to remove yourself from a toxic situation or say, do you know what, actually, I don't think I want to drive from Manchester to London tonight to go and get that thing for you, mum. I actually think it's maybe better that I prepare for my week and just rest. That doesn't exist. That's not an option. And yes, I know the option always exists. You could just say no, but we are made to feel so guilty and so selfish and so bad if we do stuff like say no. So setting boundaries when you're ethnic, and I'm not saying it's all white people, I'm sure some of you have got some hard graft there with some of your parents, but majority, and like out of people I know, it is mainly us immigrants where it is hard. So how do we do it? I think the things that we need to first of all set are, what are our non-negotiables? Don't know if anyone watches The Bear. I mentioned it on a previous minisode. Very good. And in one episode, the main guy writes a list of non-negotiables for his kitchen. And I think we should apply that to our lives. Make a list of non-negotiables that you need. Let's say, for example, my non-negotiable is I need to be in my house by 8 p.m. on a work night so that I can be in bed by 10, let's just say. And then for, like, I don't know, people come into your house, like you need people out of your space by 11 p.m. on a weekend. For example, yours can be whatever you want. Maybe yours is the total opposite, like you need people there till 2 a.m. Whatever. Write out all of those. Then you look at the people in your life who are constantly going against those things. Guess what? You found your boundary projects. Those are the people. Then you start to think about how the boundary normally gets broken. Like what's the setup here? If it's, let's take the example of leaving your house. Is it that it gets to about 9 o'clock and the person who won't leave now invents a reason they need to be here a bit longer? Oh, can I charge my phone? Oh, I just need to go to the toilet. Oh, can I have one more tea? Whatever it might be. And then you think about, is it possible for me to vocally discuss this with the person who keeps doing this? Or is this something where I'm just going to have to take matters into my own hands and spare the person the awkward conversation? Maybe it's awkward because you as a person don't know how to have that conversation, which is totally fine and very common. Or is it awkward because you can have the conversation, but you know the person will just not take it well? Those examples, it's no surprise, are about me. I need to be in my house by that time because I need to unwind and I get very overstimulated because I'm very extroverted. I need to like recharge in silence, and I also need people out of my space by a certain time. And I have a friend, love her to bits, but she is a friend who, if you are seeing her, you have to give away minimum 6 hours of your life. And that might sound normal to some people, but for me, that is a lot. I have a 2-hour cut off. I really struggle past 2 hours, and that's with anyone. That's like people that are closest to me and also people I don't know. 2 hours is like, we're getting to the edge now. But this friend, 6 hours minimum. And she will come to your house, she will see you getting ready for bed, and it will still not move her. It doesn't matter. Like she doesn't see that it's time for me to go home now, you know? And I know the kind of person she is, and she would not take well to me having that conversation with her. So for us, it's had to be where I've looked at, right, how do we contain this? Because I love her and I want to see her and she's my friend, but that's just something that I need to set a boundary for that she clearly isn't respecting thus far. So what we do is I make plans with her on days where she has something to go to after. So if she's got something on at 7, I'll be like, okay, no worries, I will see you from 4. And also I will set the time that we meet. So if then you are late, this was the agreed time. It doesn't mean now because you were an hour late that we spend an extra hour. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, basically setting boundaries for things like that is not the easiest, but it is also like easier than setting boundaries with family who you really, really love, who have spent years conditioning you to believe that everything is your job. And now you need to like make a bit of a step. And also, I'm going to be real with you because that's what Maya's Minutes is. It's a real place. It is not going to be nice. Whoever it is in your life that you need to set the boundary with isn't going to like it. It's hard for people who are boundaryless to watch somebody have boundaries because boundaries is an act of self-love. And it can be done in a way that is not hurtful, but to the person that can't imagine setting boundaries and lets other people take the piss out of them because they don't have boundaries, you are always going to be seen as selfish and horrible and not nice. So you just have to get comfortable with that. And that's something that I've seen a lot of people not able to do. They can't cope with the idea of upsetting someone. And I sound like a dictator on these minisodes, but honestly, I think we need to get comfortable with upsetting people, because people don't mind upsetting us. So we need to have that same energy. Like my mum, for example, she is notorious for people taking the piss out of her. And it can be something as small as being somewhere, usually the Gurdwara, and people being like, oh, just Benji, just drop me to blah, blah, blah. And she will do it. She doesn't know this person. She probably doesn't have the petrol for it. She's definitely going to complain after, but she will do it. Why? Because she feels bad. That is a serial case of, I don't even know, like the best boundary setter tutor in the world. I don't know if they could help her. But then it also could get down to the level of she has plans with someone and they have said they'll be there for 4. Then they change it to 5. They text her at 7 and say, I'm not coming anymore. And then she'll be like, oh God, I just, complain to me. And again, but why didn't you tell them these are your times and I can't see you outside of them? I felt bad. So it's like, this feeling of guilt and that you are not within your rights to say what works for you is what plagues people who often struggle to set boundaries. They often go hand in hand. If you operate from a place of guilt and shame and inability to choose yourself, I'm describing the daughter of immigrants at this point because this is all of us, then we struggle to set out boundaries. But honestly, as a reformed boundaryless person, from the other side, it is a much better place to be. Like, people always ask me, because I live my life in a very boundaried way, and it sounds like, oh, that's a bit boring, but it's because I want to. It's not because I'm forced to. These are things I actually want to do. Even down to how you want to do things. Like, I went to City Splash in July, I think it was. Or was it the beginning of July, June? Or it might even have been May. It was May. Oh my gosh, City Splash was in May. The weather was diabolical. I've got a TikTok about it. Anyway, different story. And my friend who I was going with messaged me and she was like, okay, so I'll come to yours if that's okay. And I was like, yeah, obviously you can come to mine, but we had the bathroom being done at the moment. It was like gutted out, it was stress. And I just thought, oh God. And also, like, I've never been a person who enjoys getting ready for things with other people. I sound like a psychopath on this pod, but maybe I'm actually just saying what other people think, but other people don't say it. I think that must be it. Anyway, so I don't enjoy that. So I was like to her, obviously you can come in, obviously, go toilet, have a drink, whatever, but it's not a thing where we're gonna both be bunched together over one mirror, sharing an eyeliner and getting ready, and then, before you know it, you've made a makeup stain on the carpet and you've left your bag here, and that's not happening. So obviously come in, but just setting your expectations. And she was like, oh hun, yeah, I just meant that, like, I'll pick you up from yours, so it's easy that we don't have to meet somewhere, because we won't get signal, it'll be hard, etc. So that's what I meant, don't worry. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And often you'll be surprised when you set a boundary, it actually takes the pressure off the other person, because they might also have been thinking it, and or they now know where they stand. So I've got some friends who are like veterans in this, and they will say to me, if like we have plans, they'll be like, by the way, what time do you want me to leave? Because if they're coming to my house, or if it's a setting where there's not a clear end time, so like we're not going to see a film, do you know what I mean? If it's something where this could go on, some friends I have are brilliant and I love them for it. If you're listening, shout out you. And they will be like, yeah, what time should we leave? And that to me is like a love language, because you're taking on that I may have had enough by some point, and you're taking that burden off me, and you're letting me tell you now, yeah, go by this time. Do you know what I mean? And I just think, oh, amazing. Obviously, I'm very focused on the time example here, but it can be anything. It can be certain things that might have happened, traumatic things might have happened in your family or somewhere. I keep saying family because for me it's family, but for you it might be friends. It might be, what else is there? Friends and family. Yeah, it's someone in your life. And there may have been a traumatic thing that's happened between you or around you or in some capacity. And maybe your boundary is that this person cannot speak about such event with you. Or if they talk about it, they can't use certain words, or they can't talk about it at a certain time, or whatever it might be. Like, you can set that and say, just so you know, I struggle with this, and it would really be helpful for me if you don't do that. And be prepared, like I said, for the backlash. Oh, here we go. Oh, so sensitive. Oh my God, people these days, blah, 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 blah. And if that's the case, then you take the next step, which is not to retaliate. Don't try and, clearly that person doesn't understand what you're doing, and they don't understand the concept of self-preservation and self-love and all the rest of it. And that is common. So then you take the next step, which is every time the person does the thing that you ask them not to do, you disengage. So you're on the phone, they start, okay, cool. Oh, postman's just, oh no, I've just got to get the door. Hang up, goodbye. They start talking about it. Oh my, do you know what? My friend Maya has just called me and said she's stuck under a tree. I've got to go. I've got to go. And I was really against this because I would see that as lying. But I spoke to a friend and I was complaining about my same boundary issue that I complain about every other day. And she was like, you need to start lying more because it serves you and the person who is not respecting your boundaries much better. Because you can keep having this conversation with this person. They aren't understanding it and they don't want to. So save both of you this annoying, repetitive process and just lie. So then the person doesn't feel like you're dodging them or buying into this oversensitive boundary talk, and you get out of the situation. And when she put it like that, I thought, do you know what? You're a genius, Tina. Shout out you. I know you're listening. So those are other things you can do. Anyway, I say all that to say, please, if you are dealing with something, which majority of us are, try your best to do something which is going to help you become more self-aware. Read a book, listen to a podcast, obviously ideally go to therapy, but I know A, that's not everyone's bag, B, that's big money, and C, it's culturally for a lot of people still quite drastic, and I respect that. So if you're not going to therapy, if that's like way over there for you, then fine. Start with a book, start with a podcast, start with even just conversations with people that are a little bit deeper rather than just the surface stuff. That will all help, because that's the only way you start to undo some of these things, man. You've got to start talking about it and looking at what it is for you, because at the end of the day, you can only control you. And because of that, I'm starting therapy. I'm starting again next week and I'm very excited, and I've been here a few times before, and this is the first time I'm actually paying for it myself. Normally I'm very lucky, as a benefit through work I can get therapy for free, but that means that you don't get to choose who the person is, and the standard as well. For me personally, the standard hasn't been the best, but this time I went on BATN, Black Asian Therapy Network. I found a woman, I spoke to a few, I really liked her vibe, and I was like, do you know what? I think you're the woman for me. I decided that I wanted to do it in person if possible, because I think, the whole ritual side of it, but she's based in Norbury and I'm in North London, so the logistics of that was a nightmare. Plus, she's only doing limited time because she's also doing a PhD at the moment, and I wouldn't be able to get there on a Tuesday and a Thursday, on work days. She don't want to do evenings, obviously. It would just be long. So I decided to do online, but I'm still going to make a thing of it. So on the days that I have therapy, I'm going to try and treat myself nice in the day and just have that as my time. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. And you can probably tell by now, I am a talker. I am trying my best to be very self-aware and emotionally intelligent, and often people like myself, we rationalize all of our issues on the first hand, and we're like, okay, I probably should get some therapy. Then you have a conversation with someone, a friend, a family member, a partner, and you solve all of your problems. You're like, I feel this because of this person makes me do that, I do that because of that, and this is happening then. And then you're like, I don't need therapy. I've just given myself therapy. I'm just saving myself the money. I'm so smart. And you don't go through with it. Or you have something traumatic happen on a Monday. Let's say it's an argument with somebody or something that really triggers you. The whole reason that you need to go to therapy is triggered, basically. And you say to yourself, do you know what? I'm gonna do this. I need to go to therapy. It's time now. Thursday will roll by. You'll have resolved your problem with the person you argued with, and then you'll be like, I don't really need to go to therapy now. And you could have gone to the steps of searching the person, having a phone call, having a consultation, everything up to paying. You'd have done everything, but the paying you won't do. So then you'll be like, I've resolved it now. I feel better. I don't really need it. and it's so much money. No, do you know what? I'm going to save the money because I need the money for this. I'm being smart by not doing it. Really, if I have the bigger perspective, I don't really need it. There's people dying. There's kids dying. I'm fine. I'm good. I'll go without therapy. And the whole thing repeats. So if you are in any of the examples I described just now, this should be your sign to get therapy. But I've listened to 1,000 podcasts and it's always come to that point in the episode where the person has said this is your sign to get therapy, and I've never done it. So I don't know if it actually does work, but if it does work, brilliant, let me know. And I just recommend, if you can and you think it works and you know it will, or you want to try it out and you can afford it, get therapy. Everyone should, especially if a big major life event is happening, like a death or a birth or a move or a marriage. Anything big calls for therapy. Birthday, therapy. And also the boundaries, man. Sum up this episode. Set those boundaries. It's 2024. Today's the youngest you'll ever be. I'm going to leave it there for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have, please reshare with a friend. Throw it in a group chat. Share on your story on socials. Drop me a message. Leave a review. Subscribe. Anything you can to help push this, because like I said at the beginning, I really want this to be my whole thing one day. And it can only be that if the metrics add up. So yeah, have a great week everyone, and thank you for listening.